giving you a quick update on the potential chip shortage that I've been talking about in my videos. It's been a little bit over a couple of weeks since the Quartz Corp quartz mine has been shut down due to Helene in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. And one of the things I said I was going to follow up on was the CHIPS Act of 2022. I wanted to dig into that to see, is there funding that they're going to be able to get to help with relief? And by the way, there's been no update, at least on their site, as far as how things are going. And Spruce Pine is very devastated right now. And so it looks like their employees are still focused on local relief efforts. And so I looked at the CHIPS Act of 2022, and what this is, it provides funds to support the domestic production of semiconductors and authorizes various programs and activities of the federal science agencies. In short, the mine is a critical piece of the industry because the mine creates the purest quartz sand that can be used to create the crucibles that the silicon ingots are created in. And so it's a very important part of the process. And they provide 70% of the world's supply of these quartz crucibles. In looking through the CHIPS Act of 2022, I don't see anything in there talking about, relief or disaster plans or preparedness, any funding going toward any of that. It talks about supply chain, but it is very interesting that type of thing is just totally left out. There's not really much discussion around mining activities and support of those. And so that, I find very, fascinating, as important as the semiconductor industry is. The thought that the supply chain could be disrupted was not taken into consideration in the CHIPS Act of 2022. There's the open question of, there's, of course, funding that they're going to need to get their facilities back in operation. And I'll just make, the broad assumption that between, their own capital and insurance, they'll probably have what they need to get things up and running. Their operation is probably, set up in such a way that they're prepared for something like this to some extent. That's great. The main concern, though, really is that they depend on the roadways, the railways, to get their product out. And they're going to be dependent on the government to get that job done. And the community as well, their employees settling back in, and all their disaster relief personally they have to take care of. So there's a lot of things that this Quartz Corp mine is dependent on that's kind of outside of their control, right? So it will be interesting to see how that unfolds, what type of support they have from a government perspective, and very interested in keeping an eye on this. Again, it's been just over 2 weeks now. As I mentioned, we figure there's about maybe a 3-month supply in the industry of these quartz crucibles. They also, have mentioned that they have, a supply of them in their own facilities, which of course they are going to have to try to, transport, and transport is definitely an issue right now. So curious to see how they do that. Thankful that the East Coast longshoreman strike ended, at least until January 15th. We'll see what happens after that. But stay tuned for more as I give you updates on what I find around this possible chip shortage that we may be dealing with early 2025.